So what's next? Of course, this is generally up to you, but here I want to continue with the meals, because of course that is a rather important part of this application. And for that, in the meals folder, I'll add a meals.js file. And this will be responsible for in the end rendering that meals list. Though actually not just the list of meals, but also this little summary text above it. And therefore, I will actually add two other components here, which split these responsibilities. I will add a meals summary JS file, which will render this text above the list of meals. And I'll render an available meals component, which will then be responsible for bringing the actual list of meals to the screen. Now let's maybe start with the meals summary component. For that, you attached find a CSS file, meals summary.module.css. And in the meals summary component file, in the JS file, as always, we just export a component. Now, this will be a very simple component because it will just contain some hard-coded JSX code. It doesn't even need to accept the props parameter because we will not be using props here at any time. And here I just want to return a section, let's say, where we have a h2 tag where we say delicious food delivered to you. And then a couple of paragraph texts with some text below it. Now, to save you the extra typing, attached you find that meals summary JS file finished, and there you got these paragraphs already added, and you also got a class name added, and therefore here I need to add the import again. You already have that in the attached file, where I import meals summary.module.css like this, and then add this summary class here, like this. Now again, you find this finished meals summary JS file attached because it is a very simple file. More interesting, of course, is the available meals file. Here we can have the available meals function. We also don't need props here actually, because I won't receive any props here. Instead, here in this application, we will work with some dummy meals data, which is baked into this component. That's of course a bit unrealistic, but we will later in the course learn how we could fetch data from a database. At the moment, we don't know it yet, and therefore we will work with such dummy data. Speaking of that, attached you find the dummy meals JS file, and that includes a simple constant, which you should add in this file above the available meals component function, which is this dummy meals constant, which holds an array of dummy meals. Again, that is that dummy data we're going to work with in this demo application. Now with that added here in the available meals component, we want to render this array of meals, which we of course could have fetched from some database or anything like that in reality. We want to render this as JSX. And therefore we will need to transform this regular array of JavaScript objects to an array of JSX elements. And that is something you of course learned throughout the course. That is something you can do easily with React. So here we want to return some JSX code, let's say with a section inside of it. And then inside of this section, I want to have an unordered list. And inside of this unordered list, I want to have my meals list. And therefore we can add curly braces and then refer to dummy meals and map them into an array of JSX elements. Now we can do this here, and we did do this here in the JSX code in the past. But to keep this return statement lean, I will actually create a helper constant here, which I'll name meals list, which simply stores that mapped dummy meals list here, so that down there I just output meals list. That's exactly the same as if I would be doing it down there. It just ensures that this JSX snippet is a bit leaner. And it's totally up to you if you wanna do this transformation here and store it in a constant which you use down there, or if you do the transformation inline in your JSX block. Either way, we will simply map all these meals by passing a function to map, which is executed for every meal by JavaScript. And then for every meal, we want to return a JSX element which represents this meal item. And that should be some list item, of course. Though I can already say for the moment, we can simply output meal.name here, like this, but that's just temporary. We will soon create a separate component for the meal item. But for the moment, we can leave it like this and finish this first draft of the available meals component by adding some styling. Now for this, again, attached you find the available meals.module.css file with some predefined CSS code. And in the available meals.js file at the very top, you simply import classes from available meals.module.css. And then on this section, we can add a class name of classes.meals. And now with that, we can go back to the meals component, which should now group the meals summary and available meals together. So here, the meals component will again also be very simple. It won't need any props either. Here, we just want to import the two other components. So the meals summary from meals summary like this, and import available meals from available meals like this, and then return both side by side. And since I want to return two elements side by side, you know that this is not possible in JSX. We must only have one root JSX element, and therefore again I will use the fragment. So we should import fragment from React as a wrapper component around meals summary as a self-closing component and available meals as a self-closing component. And now with that, we can go to the app.js file, and here below the header, I will add a main HTML element, which is a default built-in HTML5 element. And inside of that main element, I will add my meals. So I will import meals from components, meals, importing the meals JavaScript file in the meals folder, and then simply render this here as a self-closing component. And if you save that, you should see something like this. Now the summary already looks good. Of course, the list of meals doesn't, but here we are also just getting started. Now, as a next step, I want to wrap this entire list here, this unordered list, into a card component. So into a container with rounded corners and a white background and so on. And every list item itself should also become a separate component, which also outputs more data and in a nicer way. Now that's what we're going to do in the next lecture. Of course, as always, feel free to not proceed right away, but try this on your own first. Even if it then looks different than what we're going to build in the next lecture, this is a great practice you can and you maybe should do before you proceed, and we do it together next.